Hello, human being watching with me. So, I want to have a conversation with thee about a topic that's edgy, yet I find deeply important if you're drawn to the conversations that I like to have. And the conversations that I like to have tend to be ones about evolution, about how we grow and evolve as a human being while keeping our hearts open and connected to the world around us. And a conversation that's been coming up in a lot of my conversations with friends, with clients, and in groups that I run is how, as we're on our spiritual path of awakening, so much of it is about our vibration. So much of it is about our frequency, because based upon the energy and the vibration and the frequency that we're sending out, we attract things into our life that match that frequency, that match that vibration. And ideally, what we are moving towards is a place of being in a state of trust, being in a state of love, being in a state of openness, abundance, expansiveness, a connection to the divine, and moving away from a place of fear and scarcity and lack and isolation, which is what we are conditioned into. Hello, Morgan. And the challenge with this is that we are all at different places in our evolution. And what tends to happen is, based upon where we are at in our evolution, we attract people into our reality that mirror that we feel comfortable with, that we feel a resonance with. And what I find a lot of people are experiencing challenge around, but don't necessarily know how to navigate, is as we up level into different higher frequency vibrations, moving from a place of fear and scarcity to more love and connection, the relationships that worked in certain areas start to not work anymore because we start to move in different directions, or we start to shift out of the frequency that we found alignment in. And that feeling of disconnection where there was once connection can be very uncomfortable. So much so that many of us often find it easier to stay in the place of outdated connection than being willing to shift the relationship and allow it to evolve into its most resonant form so that we can continue to grow. So what is an example of this? One example is we find ourselves, and this is a lot of what I experience when I work with female clients who are opening up around their relationship to their own desire, is that as we open to our own desire, what can happen is that our energy starts to expand. Our ability to attract in more grows and evolves because we are open to receiving more. And this actually isn't even about gender. This is just about humanity. So when we start to expand, what can happen is our partner can start to feel that expansion. And if they aren't on their own path of awakening or expansion, the partner's expansion can feel like a threat. It can feel like a feeling of abandonment. It can feel like, oh, if this person is growing and evolving, they might grow and evolve without me and I might lose them, which can cause a feeling of fear and a feeling of wanting to clamp down and control and grasp, which obviously doesn't feel good. So what will often happen is in relationship, rather than growing and evolving and expanding in a way that we might naturally do if we were single, instead, we'll stay in a place of vibration and a frequency that feels comfortable for our partner. And what winds up happening is that this feeling of resentment and just stuckness emerges because we're unwilling to risk making ourselves and the other person uncomfortable if we grow and expand in a way that the relationship needs to evolve in order to meet us, or if there needs to be a temporary parting of ways. This can also happen in friendship as well. In the virtual course that I run, Appetite, which is a course for women reconnecting deeply to the nature of their desire, we had our first alumni call today, and one of the women in the group asked, Ariel, how do you deal with kind of the ending of female-female relationships, or how do you handle dealing with, let's say, one person is evolving differently or at a more rapid pace than the other person. And that what was fulfilling in the dynamic previously now actually feels like it's toxic, but one person isn't seeing it and the other one is, or it's just not resonant anymore. How do you navigate shifting the relationship without causing harm or without it being uncomfortable? And the truth of the matter is, I don't actually know if there's a way to do it that's not uncomfortable, because it's needing to acknowledge that something that was working is now not working. And how do we do this in a way where we don't make either person wrong, but instead acknowledge the shift? And how do we find this new form where each person can be who they truly are in the moment without feeling stifled or made wrong? And it requires risk. It requires a willingness to be in the not knowing, but to trust so deeply in the feeling that you have within you that something needs to shift, that you're willing to communicate it and you're willing to be in the inquiry of it and the discomfort of not knowing exactly what the next form looks like. But the only way to figure it out is to be honest about the fact that things are not working now as they are. And ultimately, I feel like this is what we as individuals need to opt into in our personal relationships to be a part of the collective change that wants to occur in the world. A willingness to speak up when things aren't currently working in the dynamic and being willing to create something new. So what I want to offer in this little nugget is to invite you to take an inventory of what relationships in your life are actually inhibiting you from evolving into this next version of yourself that you want to be. And now, before you jump on the whole, before you get ahead of yourself, this doesn't mean that you just cut the relationship out of your life. Because likely, if the relationship is not working in its current form, you are contributing just as much to the dynamic as the other person involved. And the question is, what are the truths that I need to be willing to speak in order to create the next evolution of the relationship? And how can I take total responsibility for the role that I've been playing in this dynamic so that I can show up to this conversation cleanly? And that's the invitation that I want to invite is we're wanting to expand beyond who we are currently. We want to evolve into the next version of ourselves. How do we create boundaries in our relationships? How do we create agreements in our relationships so we feel like our relationships support our growth, our evolution, our expansion, as opposed to being excuses for playing small? Because that's what we've been conditioned to in our culture. We've been conditioned to essentially engage in romantic relationships and friendships that require us to hide who we are, because that's a way more controllable society than a group of individuals that is willing to support each other in their freedom and expansion. So that's my little nugget for you. If you are a person who identifies as a woman in a female body, I am running a virtual course called Appetite beginning the second week in February. It is a 10-week course. It is an emergent course, meaning that, yes, the focus is on desire, but the curriculum is based upon each unique woman and the energy that she is bringing into the course. So some of the topics that we explore is your relationship to your desire and what blocks you from being connected to your desire and the intuition associated with it in every moment. So really looking at the underlying fears, belief systems, patterns, relationship dynamics that you've put in place to prevent yourself from being fully connected to your truth, fully connected to your power, and fully embodied in your ability to create everything in your life that you desire. We also go into looking at your relationship to receiving. So once you actually know what it is that you want, what is it that is blocking you from being an open channel for receiving the things in your life that you are saying that you desire? How do we actually make ourselves receptive and get ourselves into an energetic space where we can expand as opposed to being caught in contraction? And how do we do this in community with a sisterhood of powerful women who are holding you in your expansion and are willing to have the uncomfortable conversations and speak the truths necessary to invite you into your most embodied self. So if you're interested in the course, I invite you to private message me. I'll attach a link in the comments below. We'll have an interview together so I can really get a feel for if this course feels like a right fit for you and if you feel like it's the right fit for you. Also really getting clear on what your desires and intentions are for the course. The course is $1,297, and there are payment plans available stretched out over the course of 3 months to really make this an affordable investment for you. And what I would invite is that if you've been following me on Facebook for a while and you've been resonating with what I've been saying, and there's been this like inkling to like lean in and explore what's there for you, I'd invite you to send me a private message and we can just have a conversation. I know that these enrollment conversations can sometimes feel icky, or like there's a pressure to enroll or things like that. And what I really want to invite for you is that there's no pressure on this end. My desire is to really just to create a space for you where you can connect more deeply with yourself and find what's true for you in the moment. This is a beautiful group of women that get cultivated and get drawn to this appetite course. This will be the 4th round. And the beautiful thing about this course is that after you graduate, there is a community of women all over the world doing deeply significant and inspiring things that come together in community on a regular basis to support each other, to share about intimacy, vulnerability, all the pieces that have us be human, have us be alive, and you get to show up exactly as you are and be loved and held in that space. So that's what I have for you. I really look forward to connecting with you via private message if that's something you're interested in. And for the men who are interested in this work as well, but obviously can't be a part of the appetite container because you don't identify as a woman, I do private coaching work with men, so I'm happy to have a conversation with you as well. Specifically around looking at the places where you might feel inadequate in your ability to really show up and meet a woman in her power, in her fullness, in her joy, and actually be able to contribute something and feel confidence in your ability to meet a woman and handle a woman and experience a depth of intimacy that because of your own conditioning as a man in society, perhaps haven't felt permission to drop into. So I love working with men in those spaces of exploring your own vulnerability, exploring how to drop into deeper levels of intimacy with yourself so you can experience the type of connection with women that I know that you're hungry for. All right, that's what I have for you. Have a beautiful day, and I'll talk to you soon. Mwah.